Sabrina here today talking about multi-generational family, multi-generational living. What is multi-generational living? So that's when I'm a parent, me and my husband, we have two kids. Our older son is 28 years old. He's moved back home. A couple years ago, maybe about 3 years ago now, he moved away to work for his uncle. That worked for about 2 years. Then he moved back home. And a multi generational concept, regardless of the situation, it could be your own parents living with you, it could be your kids, whatever the situation is where you have different generations of adults living together basically under one dwelling. So, things and tips you can do to try to help make that successful. First and foremost, pray. Pray that you have the right personalities. Alex has a great personality, so that makes it a lot easier. That doesn't mean that things are perfect by any means, and I'm sure he probably feels the same way about us. For us as parents, and maybe other parents can relate to this, chime down below. For us as parents, it just feels like a normal day. For the children, it might be a little bit more difficult once you've moved away from home and then you move back, regardless of the reason. Um, some some adults beat themselves up. I know for me personally, after my first marriage ended, I had to move back home with my mom for a while, and it doesn't feel good to move back home. And plus, my mom was very controlling, so that didn't make it any better. Even though I was grown and a married woman, she had her ways. So definitely personality. You pray that your personalities mesh well together. And even though I do tend to have a stronger personality, I'm a lot like my mom, so it's probably one of the reasons we butted heads a lot. But with me and my older son Alex, we're complete opposites, so that helps that dynamic. So some of the things you can do is have that grown adult living with you or parent, whoever, especially adult. Now, the way I look at it, my husband and I have to pay rent anyway. That's not going to change. But you want to come into agreement with the person that your married part, your spouse, your partner, what have you. What's acceptable? What do you want to agree upon? Um, there's no magic formula for everyone. Not one size does not fit all. Your situation may be different than mine. Um, we have Alex contribute by buying drinks, anything related to groceries. Even when he buys his own, that contributes and helps a lot because groceries are a lot these days. We're spending anywhere from $150 to $200 a week in groceries. That's not counting eating out. That's not counting the extra trips that you make back because you forgot a thing or two, and that thing or two ended up costing an additional 40 or $50. So yeah, little things like that. Another way you can do bills that do fluctuate, like your electric bill, your water bill, things like that, where you can compare to a year ago or previously before said adult move back home. You can do little things like that to try to, and these are just things I'm throwing out. These are not necessarily things that I do for myself. Like I said, for us, groceries are the biggest thing with the contribution, like him buying his own or contributing by buying drinks for the whole family. You may decide, okay, we're just going to charge a flat rent, if you will, $200-300 a month, whatever the case may be. Um, don't look at it as ripping your child off. It all depends on what area or need you think they need help with. So, like, you don't want to put your kids in a position where they're never going to be able to leave the house because you're charging them such substantial fees that they, could be paying on their own. That's just me putting my 2 cents in. But if you have the type of adult or child living with you that all they're doing is blowing their money, then yeah, you may want to change your strategy up a little bit. Again, one size is not the same for everyone. So the first and foremost, like I said, you want to be in agreement with the person that you're sharing your property with. So if it's your wife, your husband, you're both, you're parenting this child together, even though they're an adult child, you want to be in agreement together, because one thing that's going to make it very difficult is if your spouse feels a certain way that you don't. And if that's a huge problem, try to find a way to come into the middle and agree. And as moms, we tend to always be a little bit more lenient. We tend to go a little bit lighter than the dads would. We did things like he would have to contribute around the house helping with cutting the grass, him and my younger son. So little things like that, when he was away, we paid a yard man. But now that he's back, him and his brother will alternate cutting the front and the back. One time one would do the back, the other would do the front, that kind of thing. So there's different things you can do to make that contribution. It's not always about financial. Sometimes when he's watching his younger brother, because there's 12 years difference in between them, things like that help substantially. Especially because my younger son has a medical condition where he can't be left alone. So things like that that you normally take for granted, and having that adult around makes a difference. If you are a multi-generational family where you have a parent living with you, same thing. You don't want to feel like, as with everything, your parents done for you, you feel like you're charging them rent or anything like that. But same thing, food is always a big plus. Like if you're taking $100 a month or whatever agreement, and just, okay, mom, dad, this is going to contribute towards the household. You can't look at it as skimming off the top of your parents, skimming off the top of your children, things like that. You have to look at it as, this is a multi-generational, dynamic. How are we going to make this work with a family of 6, with a family of 8, with a grown kid living home and our parents living here as well? I currently don't have my dad living with me. My mom deceased back in 2016. But again, you have to do what works for you. If you want to get pointers from different people that may be in the same situation, but it can definitely work. Now, if you're in the type of situation where it's starting to be stressful, things where it's starting to be a burden, then you may have to explore other options. Maybe multi-generational living, that dynamic is not for you. It's not for everybody. Personalities play a huge role into it. And then another thing, too, as parents, we can't, there's going to be times we're always going to lay down the law, even when our kids are grown. But you have to respect that your kids are grown. You can't treat them as if they're still 15 or 16 years old. Little things like that is going to make that dynamic tough if you're still treating them like they're in middle school or high school. And like I said, it can definitely work out. It can run smoothly. Personality is going to play a huge role into it. Not only theirs, but your own as parents. Even though I have a controlling type personality, I always knew, even when Alex was younger, how far to push him, that kind of thing. And our dynamic just always seemed to work. I think opposites just attract. So our personalities always fit well. Sometimes when I feel like he's overstepped a little bit, I'll be like, okay, now, and give him the side eye. But again, that respect goes both ways. Just because we're the parents of these children, or we have our own parents living with us, that doesn't give us the right to treat them like they're 2 years old, even though sometimes our parents can take us there. But as far as our own children, they still deserve that respect. You want to equip your children to be self-sufficient and to be able to, and self-sufficiency has nothing to do with where they live. You can be a multi-generational family and have that dynamic, and they can still be self-sufficient. It just may be a choice with today's economy and everything for people to, hunker down together and get some debt paid off and what have you. It doesn't always have to be a dramatic situation like with me, when my first situation where I literally had no money after I got divorced from my ex, things like that. No, it doesn't always have to be a dramatic situation to bring someone home, or for people to desire to be in a multi-generational environment, a multi-generational dynamic. With the way things are today, and expenses and things of that nature, a lot of families are multi-generational families. So I come to you today just to try to give you some tips that may help. And again, don't compare yourself to other multi-generational families that may, yes, you want to get pointers from them and things that may work, but just because it works for them, that may not necessarily work for you. So you have to figure out what works for you. It's been a year now. We've not had any major things. I know one time I had a temper tantrum because dishes were left in the sink, and I'm like, listen, I am not the maid. So I think that's the only time over the year I've had a little mini breakdown, because I would, once you know how it is, ladies, even men, once you're done with dishes a certain time of night, or you think you're done, say it's 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, you don't want to come back at midnight and there's a whole set of dishes waiting. Like, what is going on here? So yeah, so little things like that. But once again, I come at you today, SabrinaSnappyTips.com. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.